think the honorable thing for our species to do is deny our programming. Stop reproducing. Walk hand in hand into extinction. One last midnight, brothers and sisters opting out of a raw deal.
Do not trust any friends or family members. I repeat, do not trust friends.
Yeah, you have the fucking stars have to align. You need the equipment, you need the space, you need it all. And if you don't have it, you just don't have it.
Yeah, whereas, like Magic the Gathering cards, you can just get those anywhere for pennies on the dollar.
Well, yeah, I guess in a way. It is becoming a bit more expensive, but you could just store it in a cardboard box.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know what else you would.
You don't even need a house.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you could live in a tent and
you could be a traveling duelist. Just whip out your deck and just challenge people like a fucking Pokemon expert.
I was just gonna say that's the Pokemon itinerant lifestyle.
Warhammer, no such luck. You need a pickup truck.
That's true. And a measuring tape.
Fuck. Well, that's a big awakening for me. Kind of.
Does it make you feel sad? You're just like, oh.
A bit, yeah. Like I feel like I could facilitate it, and then maybe I should now. Like maybe,
I think that you're going to need to. Like you got to keep
time
up
to
with
make
the
this happen. This happen. You don't have a pool. You can do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is your time to shine.
You just have to get rid of some clutter. That's all.
Get rid of all that other stuff you got.
What, my basement stuff?
You're not motivated to sell. Now you are.
Your family stuff.
No, family stuff too. Your children don't need clothes.
Life distractions.
It's not family stuff down here. You guys saw it.
No, but they're taking up other space.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuffed animals.
Mm-hmm. Those things would be transformed into hard figurines.
Small ones too.
Yes, think about it. And the kids are really going to love it at the end of the day.
In a way, it's a downsize.
It is a downsize and an augmentation simultaneously. The reasons for doing this, the pros are outweighing the cons significantly.
Yeah, it's like a chrysalis. I'm just going to be reborn.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see why not. Makes sense to me. Beautiful Warhammer butterfly. I think we talk about Warhammer far more than people who have never played Warhammer ought to talk about. But there's something.
True. I don't even want to play it. It looks so hard and stupid. And also, who the fuck would you play it with? You'd have to play with yourself.
Yeah.
There's a dark gravity to it, though.
for guys like us, it's tempting.
We could get into just reviewing Warhammer novels. Make that our specialty.
Oh, hey, that's a fun idea. There's that. Okay, actually, if we want to scratch the Warhammer itch, there is a Marvel Comics Warhammer 6-issue series written by Kieran Gillen, illustrated by Jason Burrows.
That's weird.
Yeah,
that's a lot of firepower to bring to Warhammer.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's just the appropriate amount. I don't think Jason Burrows is particularly suited to it. I flipped through some of those pages. And
he's not.
And I was like, I hope he made some money off this one.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we can get around to that someday. See what the fuss is about, rather than play the actual game.
Yeah, maybe we could play a video game of it.
That does appeal to me.
That'd be easy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll table this. Or wait, no. Shelve this. We're gonna put this on the shelf.
Backburn it. Yeah.
Backburn it. It's burning in the back. It's ready. It's cooking. It's gonna come out.
It's cooking like a fucking crack
probably
rock.
A year from now. Yeah, it's coming out straight crack. Maybe straight methamphetamine. I heard, guys, that if you sell over 50 grams of methamphetamine in China, you could be executed.
That sounds true.
I did hear that. I wonder what happens if you make tons.
Yeah. Well, you might. I don't know. Maybe you cut a deal with the police, right?
A sweet deal.
Yeah. So here on the Extinction Agenda, we're talking Johnnie To's drug war. This is a treat to myself, if no one else. With James
and
Chris.
Chris. And so I don't know where to start. I've seen this movie a bunch of times, so I'm curious about your reactions, good or bad. I will say what brought me to this is one, we did the John Woo episode, and around that time I was just mainlining a bunch of Johnnie To movies. I watched like 13 of them. I probably would have watched more, but they aren't translated, right? He's got like 75 movies, and he's a working man's director, deals in a whole bunch of genres. And I just love all of his work, like post 2002 up until today. I mean, some of it's corny as fuck, and then some of it's fucking super awesome. And I don't know, what brought me to Johnnie To was this movie, Drug War. I heard some guys talking about it on a podcast, Travis Bickle on the Riviera, and way back in 2012 or 2013 or whatever, I watched this, and it just kind of stuck with me.
I would think that limited translation things probably benefits Johnnie To in terms of like Western viewership, because you're really only gonna get cherry picked, right?
Yeah, I think so. If I'm looking at the stuff that's been translated and presented, subtitled, yeah, it's the good stuff. But then again, I don't know, right? Like it's his action movies generally that are getting translated, and he does romantic dramas, he does like comedies, he does musicals, that shit that's not going to play for a Western audience, but that stuff might be good, right? One of his movies, like Life Without Principle, is sort of a dramatic response to the economic crises of 2008, and it's pretty low. It's pretty low action. I mean, there's some violence that happens in it or whatever, but there's no gunplay or whatever. And it's very much about how the financial system and like banks and gangsters have a lot in common. Anyway, so okay. Drug War. That's my sort of like, this is why we're doing the Drug War. I sort of came to it. I think it's low-key one of my favorite movies. It's not in my top 10, but I never get sick of watching it. And so I'm hoisting it on you guys. What do you think?
Well, it didn't drag for a second. I gotta say, I felt a little bit. His pacing's interesting because he kind of like he makes you drop your guard, and then fucking ramps up something.
Right.
That's how I felt when I was watching it, and I felt there was a real slow build at the beginning, but I felt it really got serious when Captain Zhang started being haha or whatever the guy's name was.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
When he personality flipped to start going undercover, I was like, oh fuck, this is serious. This is entering like some kind of weird Tarantino's zone.
I got more of like it's and I'm sure we'll get more into this, but it was more of like a Mission Impossible vibe.
Yeah, I can see that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad that flip caught you as well, because it's certainly the actor Hong Lei Sun. He has a very particular presence that I don't know, sort of to me can't be denied. Like the sort of relaxed sinisterness of him, and I know the character is protean, but and changeable and can be anything, but that's because the actor is so good and he can just kind of flip around doing whatever.
Yeah, he felt dangerous, like really dangerous throughout. Which was, I don't know. This was a lot of, I don't know. This was a lot of fun. I like the also the scene where he just does cocaine to sort of keep the drug deal alive. That was fucking awesome. I'm not sure anybody that directed this movie has ever done cocaine before.
I don't think it's cocaine. I think that's like
that was like straight up meth. Yeah, because the guy.
Yeah, I think so.
The guy that was habitually snorting it was a fucking train wreck.
Yeah.
But it was because he fucking straight up OD'd which was fucking crazy. It was a great scene. It was well acted. It was a mess. It was, I don't know. The movie just like it took a lot of fast turns.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, the little knockoff against where you didn't know if what was his name? Wu there. Louis Koo, sorry. Timmy. Yeah. You didn't know if Timmy was fucking him over, and they kept doing like little Easter eggs that he might be giving off messages.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I trusted him like an idiot.
Well, they handle it really well, like because he's so self-serving that, and he doesn't, he's trying to keep his family out of it until he can't keep his family out of it, and then he chooses family, and then he screws over his family and leaves them hanging, gives them the option to get on the bus, and then drives away. We'll go over the plot in a second. For like most people won't have watched this movie, I would imagine, but
the plot's very busy also.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear. I'd like to hear your plot synopsis. Your quick.
Oh God, synopsis. Yeah. I'll keep it. I guess. Okay. Well, let's keep it simple. So it's a movie about undercover. Like they're the narc squad for a province in mainland China. This is all filmed outside of Hong Kong, and they are ultimately they end up on the trail of a guy whose meth laboratory just recently exploded, and they capture him, and he basically just gets brought to the hospital, and then they make a deal with them, because they've like, we found your meth lab, we know you're moving a bunch of product, and the guy's like, look, I can connect you to people higher up the food chain, and so he becomes kind of a buddy cop situation, but there's no buddiness to it. And they go undercover and they go slowly up the chain. And over the course of that time, Timmy Choi, played by Louis Koo, he kind of screws over all of his associates on the way up to the top of the chain, until everyone's dead and there's a bloody shootout at the very end. And that's maybe putting it, like a sketch. That's your typical thing. And Tommy Choi is executed by the state at the end. Time to pay, folks.
Yeah, awesome how Captain Zhang got him too.
Oh, right, yeah. So, Chris, how did you feel about this? I know in your text you were like you didn't know how to come in on this one.
Yeah, I still feel that way. I still it didn't grab me. I found I fell asleep a couple times watching it, so I watched it in installments. Right. I think part of it is I think the experience. It felt like a bit like I was watching like a sports match between two teams that I had no investment in. Right. And I think there might be a reason for that presentation. Although I think I had so many questions about what China's policy towards, interfering in film, propaganda, like drugs. I'm sure that they're not, fans of drugs. I was reminded very much of I guess there just seems to be this attitude in Asia. I'm thinking of Rodrigo Duterte as well. Mm-hmm. Like this sort of just like drugs are the worst thing that possible. It corrodes society. You definitely got that feeling from this movie. But I also felt like To might have been subversive to some extent in his examination of that.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. So while he was making, this is as much as I've been able to gather, reading about it and watching the films. So To was one of the few guys that, not few, I mean, because there's probably hundreds, but your John Woo left, your Ringo Lam, I don't know what happened to him, but anyway, like all your major Hong Kong action directors, they all fled, and actors, to an extent, they all fled to Hollywood, looking for that Hollywood money, looking for that international recognition, and also to escape the fact that Hong Kong was being handed over to China. And To stayed behind, and during his films, we see this in movies like Breaking News. there's a sense that China is coming in to Hong Kong, and it's bad. Hong Kong itself can't totally manage itself, but it is attempting to like push out the influence of the mainland. You know, we saw some of this in John Woo's movie as well, but
Yeah.
it's in a different register. By this movie, you know, this is 2012 or so. Like Hong Kong's starting to be more and more sort of taken over, right? And so To is filming in a place where there is high censorship, and this exaggerated notion of like the dangers of drugs and the dangers of the criminal element do strike me as, you know, like propagandistic, although like I think it is To just playing in the sandbox. He's working within the rules that are acceptable, the rules of the game that have suddenly become acceptable or required.
Yeah. I think to some extent that felt like very much like a 1980s war on drug moralistic stance. Like the cocaine scene, or like, okay, you say meth. I felt like, do you snort meth like that? Like he does 2 lines, and then our drug kingpin is like, you know, are you trying to kill him? Like, stop. And then once that guy leaves the room, he just like falls over and starts foaming at the mouth, and just like, it's so ridiculous. Like it just feels like a PSA that you would have seen like on Saturday morning, you know, like don't ever try drugs or this will happen to you.
Yeah, well, you can snort methamphetamine, and I suppose people do. And I would imagine it, like, you're right though. There's a couple of things wrong with that scene when Captain Zhang starts fucking. There's bugs all over me. Bugs on me. Yeah. Oh, God. And then they just throw him in some cold water. And then he's fucking fine. Right? Yeah. I was like, no, dude, you almost died.
You'd
Well, I probably didn't almost die, but I mean, like, he wasn't ready for that. I mean, like,
you'd have a bad week. You'd have a bad week. And
you'd
be incapacitated for 24, 48 hours probably.
Yeah. Just as so it kind of
make a lame movie, but
yeah, it does dance over that, but it does it. You know, like this movie's virtues. I'll even expand on what you're saying, Chris. Like the fact that Timmy Choi is executed by the state at the end. Like, there's 2 stories about that. One, they ran out of money, but then 2, they knew they'd have some shit from the censors, so they included that. And I think that it didn't remind me of the 80s so much as like the 1950s or 40s, right?
Well, apparently
literally crime doesn't pay. Yeah. So this feels like an old style in a lot of ways. Code film, like Hollywood code film. And you know, like if you can accept that, just understand that, you know, that's the basis upon which it's filmed. I think it dances in its chains pretty well.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the action sequences are wild. The car chases, the action sequences, the gunfights, even just the like you were describing, James, the Mission Impossible type things, the stings, the bust, the back alley guys and computers, the wardrobe changes, the character changes, the personality flips as undercover. It's just fucking wacky. And it moves like, I don't know, the rest of the parts of it being an action movie and being exciting are just really well executed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like, I would put this movie beside Zero Dark 30 for the same things that we've been talking about, where it is a relentless procedural that is highly propagandistic and clearly influenced by the state. You know, and there's something that interests me about that a lot. And particularly when a director, and getting to the subversive elements that you were referring to, Chris, like the ubiquity of cameras in this movie, the way in which the movie goes out of its way to show how people live in mainland China, and furthermore, like how fucking dirty everything is. Yeah. Like It's like Blade Runner 2049 out there.
It's true. Yeah, that's one thing I definitely wanted to comment on.
Yeah.
Yeah, even in the beginning when Timmy's ODing in the car, and you can see the cameras across the intersection.
Yeah.
Like every single thing is filmed.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I know that's always said of China, but to sort of just put it out there that way as well was, and then you wonder who that serves. Does that serve the director to say, hey, it's like this, or does that serve the, China to say, hey, yes, this is how we do things, and
you're always under watch. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's one person's subversion is another person's recognition of doctrine, that's kind of,
Yeah, I think that's true, because every time there's been art in a state that's suppressive, there are censors who are like clearly eyeing things and saying, yes, this passes, like this is what we want to see, even though they're not catching that other message. And maybe it's just sort of like they're layered things, like it's tapping into a reality at the same time as like you can't recognize the critique if you're so enmeshed in it.
Yeah, and like who's going to say no to a narc squad who is disturbingly militaristically perfect in its execution of every maneuver. Like when they set up at the hotel, like not only are they like scheming within moments, just like on the clock, constantly working, like the first thing they do when they get into any place is they set up like this digital command center, and they intercept radio signals, and they attach cameras all over the place. And that's the part that I don't believe for one moment. That's the ultra propagandistic element to it. But it factors into like it's a superhero story. It's these guys are ultra cops.
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally replaced people.
Yeah. It's just they arrested them and then just fucking whoop. Actually, no, they didn't arrest them right away. Sorry, they just like
they just operated within the same sphere as them at one point. I was like,
it's like improv,
mess.
Yeah, which was cool. That whole like transition of I met with Haha, like pretending to be the supplier. Within moments, you're turning around, like almost setting up a sound stage, and just like the captain was like his performance was awesome. Both of them were great, but just like how he just slips into Haha's role and like the cadences and just like transforms like instantly into this drug dealer. Yeah, really neat.
Well, that first time, like, because like you see him do two roles up until that point. Like the first one, he's undercover with those drug mules in that in the bus that and that's fucking sad. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about that, I think, next.
I forgot about that scene.
And then he plays the drug guy, like the meth guy. And you think like just, that's not easy to play, but it's really he has a negative affect. He just disappears. And so you're like, okay, like he but then it's the transformation from that negative affect to ha-has, like that exuberant, you're like, oh my goodness. And I think that's why it's especially striking when that happens. But he was a chameleon all throughout. But when we first see him, and I think this is important, and I think it carries out throughout the entire movie in the form of his cowboy boots. He's dressed as a cowboy at the very beginning. And even the way he takes down the drug guy, like James, maybe you caught this, when he runs up behind him and he jumps forward and does
the scissor
fucking like the scissor kick, like you're like taking down a pig or something, and then he wrangles him, and like
that's a martial arts, like it's a proper takedown. It's an oddball one though. I want to say there's
I can't believe
throw for it.
Yeah. I don't imagine that Hong Lei's son did that himself, but it looks fucking great.
It's really cool. Obviously, like one of their choreographers was like, "Hey, yo, it'd be dope." Yeah. But it's an oddball.
And I think that cowboy element is important to this. Like this is cowboys and Indians. This is cops and robbers. and ties into the code era nature of this story.
Yeah. At the same time, that's sort of the element that I was picking up on, or maybe I didn't really get this movie at all, but because everyone seems to say that it's like very black and white, but I felt that the cops were like, as you said, like militaristic, like a takedown squad. Because of that, because of how cold they are, because we don't really see any stakes to drug use. And I don't know if you just if you're meant to understand that like drugs ultimate bad, so of course you're going to do anything possible. But it felt like the inhumanity in their processing and treatment and operation, kind of like I felt like the cops were just another gang, like drug war. Who wants the drug war at all? Like there's really no competition unless you factor in the police into that. As a combatant or just a force in this, like almost amorally.
No, you're right. Like, and I also, it's weird. I did find myself thinking of RoboCop, and it's sort of like egalitarian depiction of police forces, where
it makes
like
a lot of sense. Yeah,
women are like they're that the one, I don't know, is she a lieutenant captain? You don't get her name very often. She's just like Captain Zhang's right hand lady, and like the first time we see her, she's undercover, and then later on when they're doing the bust, she does like a fucking judo toss, brings the guy down, and then later on someone tries to attack Captain Zhang, and she just like fucking comes in, grabs him by the throat, throws him behind a curtain, throws a pot at him, and tells him to shit himself.
Yes.
But yeah, like, okay, so there is a little bit of, but then when the guy's like, so Zhang's been undercover and he's talking to that dude, and the guy's like, you betrayed me, and he was like, I busted you. Didn't you realize you were going to get executed? Like, all these people that they arrest are going to die. And I think that is at the heart of their inhumanity. Like, they're not just an arrest squad. They're part of an execution gang.
They're death squad. It's a machine.
Yeah.
They're the guillotine.
Yeah. And so like there's easily a way of looking at Captain Zhang, his mercurial nature, like the lack of person within him, as emblematic of that, just as being nothing, and only a tool of the state.
Yeah. One thing that really struck me throughout this was going back to the idea of how dirty everything is and how exhausted everyone is, and like tired, and just like the color palette of it, just like blue light is washing over everything, and like it's just like it's noticeable, like it just feels like the life's been drained out of everything. And there's the scene when they do the bust, and they're like forcing everyone to just like void their bowels, and just like rinsing the packages off, and like there's just this tacticality to all the scenes where like they're just kind of getting into the tiring reality. And there's that one scene really like where they really show that woman, and like she's a drug mule, and she's just like crying and squatting over that little like thing they give her, and like the super cop lady just gives her a tissue, but it's very cold.
The more I watch that scene, the more, and it's a Rorschach test, right? Because you're right, she doesn't smile or anything, but I think we're meant to see compassion in that moment, because the woman, like, okay, so the woman sees the cop, and she's squatting over the thing, and she's at her lowest in life, and she stands a good risk of now being in prison for the remainder of it, if not executed. Probably in prison though, because you get the impression that she's sort of trafficked. And the handing of the tissue to her is the extent of the compassion that the state will show you. Like there's no sense that that cop isn't gonna save that woman, because she cannot be saved. The machinery is in process, and the best you can do is hand them a tissue. That's how I took it, but you could very easily take it as like, I think if she was going to be totally cold, then she wouldn't give a tissue at all, right? Like it has to symbolize something.
I guess I kind of took it as a fuck you.
Well, that's interesting.
Like sort of a fucking cry me a river here.
I think go back to the scene and look at her
maybe
face.
a bit. Yeah, I think I maybe mistook that, but I did read it more in that vein for whatever reason. I was like, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, the exhaustion you were saying too, Chris, that everybody's like sort of like wiped out and exhausted at all points, and it's an ongoing theme throughout the whole film. The take a nap, I got watch, take a nap, I got watch, and then another guy goes, no, it's fine, I got watch, and they look like each of them's on like the edge, and they play that into the final sequence, like the final shootout. Like even Timmy's like basically like these cops are fucking wiped out, like they're exhausted. There's only 5 of them left. You know, now's the time, and he makes his move when he breaks the mic and goes for his play. You know, and it's funny that they ran that theme throughout the whole movie, that they were just completely being like drained, and then they played that out in that last sequence.
One point where I really felt it too is when they have the tail on that truck that's circling around the city, and then like the captain pulls alongside and it's like, yeah, like I got you, and they have to pull over, and they just like they've been driving for hours or days, and they just like rush out to piss.
Yeah. Well, because they've been pissing in bottles and eating chips, it's a testament to sort of the direction of this movie, that so much is conveyed, not just to the characters themselves, but also to the audience in brief snippets, because we learn about these cops and the fact that they are cops at that check-in station where the super lady cop she's eyeballing them, and she sees their bucket of piss, she sees their bottle of piss, you know, she takes a point of she memorizes their license plate in that moment, and she's like, something's going on here, something's going on there, put that on the back burner, got to deal with this first, then we'll get to the other thing. But I think, you know, to the subversiveness question, Chris, like I think the tiredness is part of that, and maybe that's what you're implying.
Yeah.
The fact that everybody fucking dies at the end of this movie. There's a fruitlessness to all of this, which is being conveyed, like this relentless machine that at the end of the day, it catches one guy, and even as he's dying, he's like, there's Johnny in the other place, blah blah blah, and he's ratting on everybody. But just think about the number of things that weren't even addressed in this movie, and all the drugs that are out there. Yeah,
the ending was awesome. I have to say, I really like, just even in those final moments, he's like just like a junkie, but like just like trying to weed out any sympathy, or you just can't stop. And ironically, it is like a lethal injection. Like, so it's,
killed by the drugs.
Yeah.
It's live by the drug.
Right? I forgot. But ultimately, it's a story of a snitch, which is kind of like hilarious. It's like, he's just like, he will weasel and rat and just like twist on anybody. And then it's like, it could go either way. Whatever is the most advanced. Like, I think you guys already said that, but like, wherever it falls is going to fall, but like anyone is fair game to be thrown under the bus.
Well, there was a little sequence too with the mute twins. Great, by the way. Also, all of that sequence, so many change of sceneries, like little like you were just in different locations that were so like visceral and memorable. Like the warehouse, and then there was the hotel with the little command center, and then you're back into the new warehouse where this family is kind of eating, and he's crying, talking about how his wife died in that explosion, and just like a lot of like unexpected things. But there's actually a back and forth between Timmy and Captain Zhang too, in around the mute twins time, where he says, you know, I'll give you another hour to live or whatever, and I'll be there with you, you know, and it's like it's basically like we're both gonna die, like we're all gonna die, and then it's just funny that you're given all the foreshadowing, you're given it's just a nice flow, nice tie-ins, nice tie together, nice finish. Like
you had said it earlier, when the way that Captain Zhang, like how that pays off specifically is that when it comes time, like Timmy's managed to kill everyone around him, and it looks like he's going to escape, and Captain Zhang is, like we think he's dead, and then Timmy goes to move, and suddenly he can't because old Captain Zhang in his last dying breath attached to fucking handcuffs, to his ankle, and so he has to drag around the body of Captain Zhang, and that's like there's getting back to the coldness of Zhang and the nothingness of him, and like the strict sort of bleak purposefulness of him. It is the way that guy should die. There would be something of an injustice and a lack of subversiveness if this fucking guy survived this movie and was shown to have, like, I don't know, just lived to bust again, just on to his next mission. Like, oh, okay, we're not learning the right lessons here.
There was some kind of almost like a nihilism to him throughout as well. Like, he carried himself like he could die at any minute.
And like during the drug scene, I think it's like in two ways. I think it's there. Like when he's trying, like he's so desperate, he's taken 2 snorts of methamphetamine for the first time in his life, and he's fucking freaking out, and he's goading on the other guy. Like, how about another one, huh? Like I'll go all the way. And he won't let them call the ambulance either. He knocks the phone out of the guy's fucking hand, even as he's in that state of panic.
Well, and he's taking the prompts from Timmy too. Timmy's like, don't.
Yeah.
He knows how to handle it.
Yeah.
And those are the little moments too where you feel like, I'm trying to think of I can't think of anything. I know there's a film I'm thinking of, but I'm trying to think of a movie where the two characters are like tied to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that they're both going to die, or that they're both on track for whatever's coming. There's almost like an honor between them, even though they're meant to betray each other.
Yeah, it feels like it should be easier to think of a movie that meets that description, but like I'm also having troubles. But I feel I've seen a million movies like that.
Me too. I feel like I've seen that. What's that?
Midnight Run? Is that?
I don't think I've seen Midnight Run.
Oh, I think I can't remember. I think it was on De Niro. I can't. I saw it like when I was like a kid. Like, yeah, I've never.
I would like to, since we're clearly having a brain fart, let's assume for the moment that that's significant, and let's assume for the moment that although we feel that this story is sort of universal, maybe it isn't. Maybe something draws me to this movie, and I think there's lots of things that I've sort of gone over, but I think that usually that buddy cop camaraderie isn't also, I'm gonna fucking kill you at any moment. It turns into like brotherhood at some point, and that never happens in this. It never flowers into that.
It's like a sour bromance. It's something.
Yeah. Well, because they work so well together. Like when Zhang turns into Haha, and they're in the lobby, they're goofing around, like they're laughing with each other, like they're both playing their roles extremely well. You feel that there's something to that, but there isn't, right? It's just all part of the snitch. It's all part of the hustle. In the same way that Captain Zhang is mercurial, so is Timmy.
Yeah, they really do a good job of keeping you in suspense about. I think you've already said this, James, but just I also didn't really know. I guess because the threat is so plausible, he's going to be executed for sure if he doesn't comply and get these guys to, to offer up all of his contacts and the people he works with. So like that's sufficient motivation to toe the line if you're going to start the process of snitching.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, not for this guy. And like China's a big place, and he's a criminal who's clearly been operating successfully under the radar for a long time. Probably killed a lot of people.
Yeah. Speaking of killing people, you mentioned that he talks about killing his wife. What did you guys make of that scene though? Like, because there's real. there's almost a sense, you don't really have this sense to begin with, but when you see his operation and you see his warehouse and the mute twins, like they almost have this family feeling. Like the boss comes in, they're like, yeah, let's get you a meal, and they kind of sit down. It feels very domestic. And then he talks about how his wife died in that explosion. They make the offering, right, of money, like they're going to burn money as a as an offering, I guess, for forgiveness. What'd you take from that?
Well, I think there was a familyness to it. Like I think it was genuine. Like he cries and like he didn't murder his wife. His wife died in the explosion. But yeah, like it's weird. Like I think this gets to what James was talking about, like the tonal shifts in this movie. You kind of forget that the dude lost his wife. Like it was said to him earlier, but he's so busy trying to survive. There's no mourning. And that is like I took it as him like actually sort of having a period of mourning while he could, even under surveillance, with the mute twins who clearly idolize him, like, and that the fact that they all know sign language, it gives Timmy, I don't know, some sort of like real like humanity. In a way that Captain Zhang lacks, like in its entirety.
I was gonna say it did like extra humanize him.
Yeah.
And I almost took it too as there was no subtext to believe that I should take it this way, but I felt like burning the money was almost like taking heat off of them, like
right.
Like getting rid of some part of, what the proceeds they were doing for some type of like a human reason. Like it almost seemed to like put the cops back down off guard on them because those were his family. But yeah, and that did not pay off.
Well, he does let them escape though. Like he doesn't tell the cops about the escape tunnel, and the mute twins do escape, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And Timmy, when his back's up against the wall again afterwards, has to like sort of screw them over, but like he's given them a chance and he knows they're smart, and they're shown to be smart. The only reason they die is like is some sort of stupid twist where they like happen to come out of the same parking lot at the same time. Like that could have easily been avoided, and the mute brothers would have just gone on to live their life, but everything needed to be sort of wrapped up and all the bad guys caught, right? Yeah, so I think there's something to that. His humanity is finds its way into the story around his weaseling. Like he can't be fully human because at the end of the day he has to survive. That's the most important thing. But if like that doesn't mean he doesn't have some sense of love for his family. But at the end of the day, family's expendable.
Yeah. At the end of the day, primary schools of children are expendable.
Yes, right.
Yeah, that's an odd one too. I didn't really know. Like, I mean, I think the subtext is that like drugs are going to threaten like families and children and like the basis of society. Like,
that's really interesting. Yeah, like Nightcrawler. Shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but you need to worry about this in the suburbs.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good parallel. Was he going after his own? How did they end up there? I didn't really. I was trying to figure out what.
Timmy directs them, the guys in the truck. He's like, get off here at this exit, and everybody's like, well, that's a school, but he knows it's a school. Like the point of it is to give them cover from the cops. Like the cops aren't going to engage in a full out
dare them, engage in a full fight.
Yeah. That's how I took it, and I think that's what the movie wants us to take.
Makes sense. Yeah, who's more desperate to end this?
Yeah. So he's just throw some sand in their eye. Here's a way of doing that. A movie like this, which is largely procedural, getting back to the Mute Brothers, James, and one of the things that was so cool about them is like, so Johnnie To does a lot. He's done a lot of action movies, and this movie is not focused around action. It's focused around procedure. But the scene with the Mute Brothers is baby getting its bottle. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And the way the cops are moving in, but it's like it's very Hong Kong action, the way they're responding. And the juxtaposition between like their goofy behavior and the way they just start fucking murdering cops in a like hyper efficient fashion is very pleasing.
They were so competent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think there was like one of the cooler moments was when you see his eye through the bullet hole.
Mm-hmm.
The best that they're both showering in their bulletproof vests.
Yeah, that's right.
They got one dude's taking a shit and he's wearing his vest because he takes a fucking slug straight to the chest, looks down and it's lodged in his vest, and the other guy's having a shower in his. But as soon as you see his eye through the peephole and he just like calmly whilst shitting just like fucking empties 2 clips and just puts down a bunch of SWAT guys. It was beautiful. They were so calm, their movement. It was like and yeah, like I don't know, it's because they were mute, because they were deaf. I'm assuming there was just like this stillness to the movement and to their movement because they were not hearing the same type of gun violence that everyone else is hearing. So
that's very
I don't know.
yeah.
I picked up on that a little bit in the movement and the way that the soundtrack kind of shifted, but.
Yeah.
That was cool.
No, that's. I think that's definitely at play. I like that. And I'm watching the scene right now after the gun battle when like all the cops are pissed off and like we see Captain Zhang transform into like, you're going bring that man back to headquarters. And he just the way he turns his head to the person who's going to be executed. He did that to the same thing with the guy at the beginning. Like he sees him and he just turns his back on him. Like that's his move. Like if you're done with Captain Zhang, he's not even going to look at you. He's going to like point in the direction of where you ought to go so you can die. Yeah.
Huh?
So yeah, I don't know. I really admire this movie. And I like all the things that might be considered bugs about it. Like it's a very obvious state influence. That I think that just again I like to see To operating around that and seeing what's possible within that. The haunting sort of landscapes, the barrenness of it, like there's nothing. I've seen other Johnnie To movies where, like, I'm thinking of the election movies where mainland China is presented as this like bountiful, hilly place where you could build your factory and make the money and stuff. Everything's nice, but I'm looking at the harbor right now. It's fucking disgusting.
The harbor was horrible.
Yeah, everything's just awful.
The boats were from like the 70s in a Rambo movie or something. They were all just completely dilapidated. And the funny thing about the boats too is they were all running this proud, clean, large mainland China flag. And it was like you were supposed to be like you were taking this image of like a perfect uniform China across the skyscape and then looking down at the shit of these boats. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's more of Rev's subversive stuff on it.
Yeah. No, honestly, man, I didn't even notice. I didn't even think about it, but I'm looking at it now and like, yeah, that's totally there. Yeah.
It's a wonder that they didn't pull the plug on this guy. Anyway.
Well, because there's a lot of like, I don't know. I've seen pictures. Like this is a real place. Like this isn't a set. Those are real boats. I don't know. They probably even have the flags on them, but fuck do I know, right?
Maybe they have to.
Yeah, maybe they do. I don't know. It seems a little strange, but the coordinatedness of them and like getting back to the fact that the cops are just omnipotent. They just take over this harbor and they can like get all the boats to just drive off at unison just because they said so. Like they're doing that out of fear. Like these guys are just, imagine some jerk off just came into your shipyard and he was like, all right, buddy, you're like, we're in charge now. Like you're going to make some telephone calls, right? You're going to put up a fuss. It's going to be days before this gets sorted out. Nope, not in this movie. They move in, and within an hour's notice, like, they control this entire place because they're the arm of the state. Yeah, I just find that very interesting. Even if it is propaganda, I think there's, propaganda is not art as a consequence of being propaganda.
Now, all we need is a little energon and a lot of luck.